Hello, everybody. Oh, I gotta get some tea. Familiar name missing. What's up, dude? You don't have names for your familiar? Familiars die very fast in my games. It's like the first area of effect spell, it's like boom, they're dead. And then they're like, oh, that familiar's gone. They got like a special familiar that's like an imp or something that they worked really hard to get. One area of effect, fireball, etc. Oh, that imp's gone. Well, maybe not fireball for an imp, but you get the idea. They don't last very long. Eric Bigford, what's up, dude? How you doing, man? What's up, Goliath? William, what's up, man? How you doing, dude? Chad, hello. What up? No, familiars are not tanks. All right, I gotta go spam people on my Discord with this. And then we can rock and roll. Chunk. And Discord. Going over to Discord. Time for some spammage. Put an emoji here. We're gonna put a bacon emoji. Bacon and beer. There you go. Bacon and beer. All right. Copy that. Send that sucker. All right, there we go. That's spammed. I should go do a thing on Twitter too. That's the thing people do. Hey everybody, look at them live, and they're like, dude, we don't care. Don't respond. Everybody's yelling at us. Quiet and leave us alone. Oh, my bacon and beer emojis didn't transfer properly. Oh, that's so sad. There we go. That's pretty good. Oh wow. I'm looking at a tweet from Dungeon Craft and it says Hasbro hits an all-time low. Come on, post that thing, you piece of junk. There we go. D&D will not be Monopoly for long. Really, an all-time low? Oh, that must have been there. So there was a video. I saw a video by somebody as a D&D video, and this person, every single video they make is like doom and gloom. It's like the world is falling. Like the D&D crisis just got worse. And then next week, I know you can't believe this, but the crisis got even worse. And then the next week is like D&D is on fire. And then the next week, every video they come out with is a crisis. It's a burning crisis. I mean, it works. They get tons of views relative to their subscriber base, but every view is like, the world is imploding. Ah! It's insane. That's like, I should do that. I'd get lots of views if every video were like a new crisis in the D&D realm, you know? Hasbro is down, but Wizards of the Coast is up. We should probably we'll look at the stock stuff. That sounds interesting. Well, we can probably start here. Shaz, what up, dude? Bruno, hello. How are you doing, man? Wizards of the Coast is up because of Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sure they get royalties, right? They must. All right, let's start this thing. That was easy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome to the live stream. We're hanging out tonight. We're gonna talk about game master junk, dungeon mastering, D&D crap. I have the new Pathfinder 2 remastered books sitting right here. I opened them up once, and I don't know what to do with them. We could look at them a little bit, but I don't have a lot to say about them because I haven't really looked at them a whole lot, except for they changed their dying mechanic, which I think is awesome. And the table of contents are actually useful now, which I think is awesome. So those are two things I noticed immediately. Well, the table of contents immediately I noticed, and I was like, wow, this table of contents is useful now. I actually looked at the table of contents and found the dying rules. I was mind boggled because the old book, if you look at the old one, in the table of contents, it doesn't help you at all. Like, it's literally worthless. You know, like, it doesn't tell you where to find anything. It's just the big, huge sections, which are pretty worthless. But the new book, and you have to use the index on the old book, but the new book actually has a table of contents that is useful. It tells you where the individual things are, like the dying rules, you can find them, and where elf and all that. It's pretty cool, you know. So that was one thing that immediately jumped out at me that I was kind of happy to see. And then I looked at the dying rules. We can talk about it. It's funny. Pathfinder 2 with the new dying rules is going to be this like landscape of death. Like characters' bodies strewn around, you know, like heads decapitated and internal organs just like all over the place, just spaghetti and meatballs. It's going to be like, that's the new Pathfinder 2, just death and decay all over the place. Like, what's the name of their official setting in Pathfinder 2? I always forget the name of it. It's not in here. It's not in the player core book anymore. Which book did they put it in? The Age of Lost Omens, but that's not the name of their world. O'Brien? What was that page? 167 or something? Orion? What is the name of the world? Absalom? Is it Absalom? Is that the name of the world? I'm trying to find. I don't know. Somebody knows. Golarion, thank you. Thank you for chat. Anyway, like Golarion is just gonna be like corpse strewn. Except that I 100% guarantee you that there will be like a small portion of Pathfinder 2 groups that will use the new dying rules. Most of the groups, I'm gonna wager a guess, are just gonna be like, what? No! And they're not gonna use them. It's crazy. So I think most people will throw those out and just ignore them, and they'll use the old dying rules, which is fair. I mean, the thing is that Pathfinder 2 characters aren't exactly fast to create unless you have a lot of practice at it. So like, man, you create a character and he dies pretty quickly because of the new dying rules. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work to create that character, and now he's dead again. Except of course there are, you know, what do they call it? Path Builder online, a 100% free online tool that you can use to create characters pretty easily. So it's actually not that bad, I suppose, to make a good character because it's all online and automated and crap. But anyway, my suspicion is very few people will use the new rules. But I read them and I did some math and I did some calculations and I figured out how it would actually work, and it's pretty brutal. I like it. I will tell you though, I'm not gonna use the new Pathfinder 2 dying rules for my game because, and the main reason I'm not gonna use them is that we're still, I wouldn't say that we're experts at Pathfinder 2. We've only been playing it for like 6 months. And so a lot of us are still getting the hang of things, you know. And the last thing I want is it to get more brutal. Our Thieves Abound campaign has already been pretty brutal as the learning curve is being overcome. And so I don't need to make it more brutal. So I won't be using them. But as a game master in general, I do like the idea of death being more on the table and being more frequent. For me personally, I like that. That appeals to me. I have reasons for not doing it in my current Pathfinder game, but if we had been playing for like a couple years and we're all just kind of like veterans and pros at this stuff, then I would probably be jumping all over that. But anyway, so it's pretty cool. Eric Bickford says, so is Pathfinder 2 rules and play better than 5th edition? I'm enjoying it. I still have a 5th edition game every other Saturday, and I have a Pathfinder 2 game every other Sunday. And I'm going to tell you, like, there are things that I like about both of them. There are. I mean, I just put out a video a few weeks ago talking about Pathfinder 2 versus 5th edition, and I did a comparison of the different things. And so I find both games to be enjoyable. But there are things about Pathfinder 2 that I like, like example, I literally made, this was the last Sunday, my players were exploring and they were going to the quest location. They've been having multiple side quests to go off and do other things, but finally they got back on track to the actual quest. It's my fault they have side quests because I put hooks out there for the side quests. It's not like my players are just like, screw Luke. No, I put a bunch of hooks out there and my players are like, oh geez, and then they picked all this other stuff. But they finally now got back to like the real mission or whatever. And on the way there, like all they were doing was looking for a place to rest for the night. Like they had 7 days of travel and they were on day 6 to getting to like the quest location. And they're like, yeah, we're just gonna rest for the night. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you're in a mountainous area. Any particular thing where you want to rest? Oh, let's look for a cave. Okay, cool. Somebody does a survival check. And they get to a cave, right? And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, caves are like prime real estate. They're going to be occupied. It's not going to be empty. Something's going to be in the cave, right? And my players are level 4 now. And so I was like, okay, cool. What's a cool solo monster challenge for level 4? And I'm like, well, level 7 is supposed to be a severe encounter. All right, let's see what level 7s there are out there. Like, because they're fully rested. They're good to go. So I'm like, I'll find a level 7. And I was flipping through the bestiary. And in the back, CR7, there was a drake, a frost drake. And I was like, that's perfect. It's a CR7 frost drake. Beautiful. And so they had a cave. In the back of the cave, there was this frost drake, and my players found tracks. They went in, they investigated it and stuff. But I, on the fly, created this encounter with this frost drake, and it was a challenge for them. Now there were 6 of them, so technically a frost drake, which is a creature 7, is only a moderate encounter. So I beefed it up a little bit. I gave it some additional abilities on the fly that made it do a bit more damage, and I gave it some more hit points. So that was a very challenging battle for them. There were a couple. One of the guy was yo-yoing up and down a few times, and somebody else went down too. So they had to really work for it. They had to really work hard for that encounter. So, but it was cool. It was awesome to be able to pick out a monster that was mostly where I wanted it. And here's the thing too. It didn't have there are no legendary actions or any lair actions in Pathfinder 2. Like, it's not a thing. So this was just a solo monster that had 1 turn per round. And it was doing well against them. Most of the time you think 5th edition, it's like, well, if you don't have the same amount of creatures as the players, it's going to be a surround and pound and it's going to be bad. That wasn't the case. This was a legitimate challenge. Like, this creature was doing enough damage every round to almost drop a character if it hit every time. It was a serious challenge for them. And so it was beautiful. So this is what I'm getting at. One of the things I like about Pathfinder 2 thus far is it's awesome to just be able to pick a monster, throw it in there, and because their math is so tight, I can trust in the fact that the challenge is going to be roughly what I wanted it to be. Now, in this case, I adjusted a few things because I had 6 players as opposed to, the 4 or whatever that was on my screen. Like, it said that, you know, a CR7 or a creature 7 is like, you know, extreme or severe for my group, but I have 6 players, which is more. So I adjusted it on the fly a little bit as we went there, which worked pretty well. I think that's the first time I've ever adjusted a Pathfinder 2 creature on the fly as we played, and it went pretty well. So, but yeah, it was great. And you know, the thing is that like the #1 complaint I always hear about D&D 5th edition is encounter balance and the challenge rating system and how borked it is and how nothing works. And like after level 12, the game is unplayable because you can't calculate it. You can have a level 15 group against like a CR 30 and they still win somehow miraculously because it's all just a big pile at that point and it's a guessing game. And so one of the things I really enjoy about Pathfinder 2 is that it's less of a guessing game and the math kind of works and I can rely on it and not be too worried about things. And thus far, the math has proven out. Now, I haven't always understood the math properly and I've screwed things up along the way, but that's because I screwed things up, you know? So that's the cool thing about the system, you know? Now, is there some more complexity in rule crunch? Yep, there sure is. But you know what I do? I ignore the things I don't care about. I just ignore the things I don't care about. Now, a lot of the combat stuff, that's the part where it's like, well, let's pay attention to this stuff, you know, because that's pretty important. But when we're out of combat and we're just exploring or we're doing a social interaction, most of the like little fiddly bit rules, like I'm just like, yeah, give me an intimidation check. I'm not going to use the specific rule mechanics for coercion in the player book. You know, it's like, that's just too fiddly for me. Just give me an intimidation check. I, as the adjudicator, will decide what happens. You know, and I streamline some things, you know, mostly out of combat. Now, in combat, it's a little different. Those rules are probably more important to follow. But when you're out of combat, it's like, we'll just kind of eyeball things and have fun, you know. So, but yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it. I still like 5th edition. I mean, I look forward to my 5th edition group too, because you know, it's not a bad system. It's just, you know, Pathfinder 2 is pretty cool too, you know. Pathfinder 2 is better for encounters. The thing you got to keep in mind with Pathfinder 2 though is that you have to pick creatures that have the proper creature level, or CR in 5th edition is what you would call it. Whereas there's more, because of bounded accuracy in 5th edition, there is more leeway in like creature levels and stuff. But in Pathfinder 2, there's less leeway because bounded accuracy is not a thing. So encounter building does work, but if I have a level 4 party and I find a creature it's a creature level 10, oh man, no way, they're dead. The armor class will be so high they can barely hit it. The saving throws will be so high that they're going to critically fail almost every save. So like, you have to be careful. The math works a lot better, but that means that you need to be more careful too. In 5th edition, it's a lot more forgiving because of the bounded accuracy mechanic, I've found. So it's good, but you have to be smart about it. You know, you can't just be careful. It's like I have a feeling that a lot of 5th edition game masters are just kind of like, rules, whatever. And they kind of like just wing things and they don't really understand the rules super well and they don't really implement them super well. And they're okay because, you know, the rules are they kind of can be loose in 5th edition to a certain extent. Pathfinder 2, if you're too loose with certain rules, like in combat and stuff, or encounter building, it could be devastating, you know? So I think you have to know the rules a bit better. And if you don't know the rules super well and you're not using them properly, then I think you're in for like a rude awakening, right? So it's a little different, like. So anyway, but it's cool. I like it. Oh, we should talk. Oh, I jumped right into the stream and we're talking about stuff and I didn't even do all my obligatory sleazy plugs and crap. All right, we got to do a few things. First, we have a giveaway going on. You can win a copy of Into the Fae. It's a level 1 to 5 adventure module that I wrote. It'll be a signed copy. If you win it, If you already have Into the Fae and you don't want it, you can also get store credit on the DM Lair store. There's a link floating around in the chat where you can join the giveaway. It's free. We will draw the winners of the giveaway at the end of the stream. All right, that's the first thing. Next, I need to do my patron shout outs. All these wonderful people that you see on screen right here are our wonderful patrons. These folks help support all the content we create. I love these dudes. For instance, the free resources, 100% free Game Master resources that are over on the dmlair.com. You can get adventures, you can get traps, puzzles. I hate making puzzles. You can get free puzzles and stuff over on the dmlair.com. These folks here, their patronage allows us to be able to do all of that content, to commission the freelancers, pay freelancers to write the content, and all that kind of stuff. So really do appreciate our patrons here. Obviously, our patrons get premium content as well. Every month, our patrons get a new issue of Lair magazine, which has adventures in it, more traps, more puzzles, but the premium stuff, like the really good stuff. And it's professionally laid out and looks amazing and stuff. And it's also available in 5th edition and for Pathfinder 2 as well. So anyway, patrons get all of those cool things. So thank you for your support, patrons. And then these folks right here, they get their names read out loud because they're super awesome. All right, this list is too big. I gotta take a drink and then we're gonna read this. My tea is getting cold already. That is weird. Adam B, Agile Monk, Alessandro N, Alex S, Alexander O, Amanda W, Ambers, Angelique K, Art Soccer, Ashley, Elkus, Beaviscon, Bees in Space, Black Wolf, Brad M, Bradley H, Brandon A, Brandon P, Brian D, Brian O, Brian the Lion, Carl C, Chris C, Christine B, Christopher G, Colette H, Colin W, Connor D, Contrary Gravy, Corey A, Courtney H, Daz What Up, David S, DeWolf, Dean B, Derek E, Derek K, Dice Goblin Wannabe, Dominique S, Don D, Dazem, Dungeon of Terra, Dutch, Ed R, Edward B, Edward L, Imfrabo, Endorian72, Eric B, Erno T, Gabriel T, Gary C, Jean A, Generic Throwaway 100, George E, George R, Greg P, Guapo, GBTM, Heart Ungaled, Helltong, HLD, Iron Cascade, Ispail Bond, Jackie Pizza, Jake L, Jacob K, James C, James L, Jan F, Jennifer M, Jeremy W, Jim P, Joanne P, Joel A, John A, John J, John the Wicked, John Pinkanose, Jonathan F, Jonathan S, Jonathan V, Jordan A, Jose, Host, Joseph H, Joseph W, Josh M, Josh S, Joshua G, Juan, Kamata, Keka Notisutu, sorry, Kevin F, Killsaber K, Kirby, Crystal S, Curry Call, Laura H, Laser H, Siam, Lionheart, Linda, Loki, Lord H, Luke E, Matlock, Macy S, Magna, Marcel V, Matt S, Matthew C, Meepanoned, Meepy, Michael G, Mirostal, Mitchell, Mo20s, Mordakin, Mr. Owl, Nerd with Glasses, Lord Over 900, Nicholas S, Nearith, Old Man Mage, PN, Pathnick, Pivo, Porkchop Bacon, Puppet Master, Quinn Themo, Randy B, Rebar, Renner C, Richard M, Robert W, Robert C, Robin B, Ryan, Saul S, Sakuro, Samantha J, Samantha J, Samuel S, R, M, Scott R, Scott S, Shadow, Shane L, Sheila A, Simfan, Snapbragger, Soul Bora Gaming, Son of a Sofa Man, Soul Nia, Stan the Man, Stefan G, Stephen T, Steve S, Sturm, Terry V, The Three Quarters Hospital, The Old DM, The Wookiee, Puzzled, Newbad Ombre, Thomas F, Thomas J, Timothy T, TK, Travels the Lost, Trinity Series, Tyler D, Tyler R, Unalloyed, Undying Warlock, Valagor, Victoria Q, Vinny, Vladimir S, Walt O, Wesley K, William C, XX Red Drum, Zachary J, Zombie Trami. Woo, thank you. What? I can't. Okay. This isn't gonna work. I'm not rubbing your belly. All right. Yeah, I know you're jealous. Well, he's assertive. All right, cool. Let's do some questions. Wee. Don't rub against the camera. Why do you rub against the camera? You don't need to rub against the camera. Squeaky, you big baby. You relax. All right, let's find some questions here. How do you calculate a one-shot duration? I'm trying to make a 4 to 5-ish one-shot, but I'm struggling with the time calculation. So there are really two answers to this. Groups approach stuff at a different pace. So you're going to have to use your own experience when you're calculating the time for a one shot. But what I can tell you is that if I have a dungeon or an adventure, I can probably get 2 encounters in, like fights. We'll say fights, 2 combats. One of them is going to be the boss fight. That's going to probably take an hour, okay? Because it's going to be a big boy. And then I've probably got one other encounter. And if I have those 2 encounters, then that's probably going to take up half of my game time. I got 2 hours, and those 2 encounters took up those 2 of the 2 hours, right? And I got 2 hours left. Those other 2 hours are going to be exploration. They're going to be poking around. They're going to be moving around the dungeon. They're going to be interacting with things. They're going to be talking to people because there's going to be other encounters. There's going to be like a social interaction and stuff. So I've probably got 2 fights, because fights take a long time, generally speaking. And then my dungeons, my adventures usually have about 8 rooms in them, let's say, maybe 10. But only 2 of them are going to be fights, remember. I mean, they might not be fights, but they're probably going to be fights. Because I'm going to put other elements in the game, that aren't fights, so that we can appeal to all player interests. Because some people like fights and some people don't. So I put a little bit of everything into my adventures when I design them. So I would say that if you have about 8 to 10 rooms, 8 to 10 scenes, let us say, if 2 of them are combats, then that probably will get the job done. Make sure you throw at least one social interaction in there, and then some good exploration elements. You might have a trap or a puzzle in there. You might have secrets to be found. There might be some lore or something that they can discover that's going to help them with the boss fight or something like that, But generally speaking, if you do something like that, you can get that done in about 4 hours. Now, you might, the other, that's the first answer. The second answer is you need to be able to adjust on the fly the scenes that you include in your adventure. So my boss fight is not optional. I'm going to have that, but everything in between is kind of optional. The players arrive at the adventure location, and then everything between that and the boss fight is kind of optional. So if I see that we're running low on time, I will take out scenes, which means that if there was going to be something in this room that they go in, it's just kind of empty and there's nothing in there to find, and then they move on. That's something you do as well. You just pull stuff out, Now, actually, there's a third thing you do. The third thing you do, and this will literally save you 1 to 2 hours. You will save 1 to 2 hours if you do this. So a lot of adventures start this way. The players are in town, and they're like, oh, we're in town. Woo! All right. And they're like, and then you're like, oh yeah, there's this quest, and there's this NPC quest giver to go talk to. Okay, let's go talk to him. All right, so they're in town, and they go talk to the NPC quest giver. That takes a half an hour to get the quest. Because, oh, well, what's this? Do you know anything about those monsters? What's there? How do we get there? It's like a half an hour to talk to this person, right? And then they're like, okay, cool, we got the information for the quest. Great. Now let's go to the quest location. And then there's always one player who's like, wait, let's go shopping. Well, there's another half hour at least. Okay, and then everybody's like, oh, you're right. We should get some potions and stuff. Make sure we got healing covered, and, I want to go get my boots prepared. And so then you easily have like an hour, if not 2 hours, and then you got to travel to the adventure location. And it's your own fault if you put a random encounter in while they're traveling there as the game master. But you got an hour to 2 hours that you might blow for your one shot if you have them start in town at the NPC quest giver. You easily, an hour to 2 hours is gone, right? Gone, doing stuff that arguably is not the most interesting part of your adventure, things that are not the meat and potatoes. So skip that stuff. We call that fluff. Now, yes, in your normal campaign, that stuff is fine. People want to get part of the game is talking to the NPC quest giver and doing all this different things and finding information about your monsters, maybe doing some research, stocking up on potions and stuff, but it's fluff, right? People kind of enjoy it, but if you're going to rank the things that are most enjoyable about the game for most players, I would be willing to wager that shopping is like down here and actually doing the adventures is way up here. So when you have a limited amount of time, you get rid of the things in the game that most people find the least enjoyable, and you emphasize the things in the game that most people find the most enjoyable. Thus, what you do is in a one-shot, you read off the backstory of the adventure of what's going on, and then you start the players off at the adventure location. They're outside the castle. They've just gone down a flight of stairs into a dungeon or the sewers. They're literally there. They know what the objective is, and they're there. And then they can start doing the adventure immediately. You save yourself 1 to 2 hours, you skip the fluff, and you're rocking and rolling. That right there is a huge tip that will save your one shot a ton of time. So if you do those 3 things, then you're well off on your way to running a one shot that stays within a 4-hour time block. Now, I run games at conventions all the time. I know that this works. I run one shots right here on my YouTube channel. You can watch the one shots that are on the channel right here. And every single one shot, the very beginning of it, what is Luke doing? Luke is narrating the background description, and then he starts everybody off at the adventure. There's a reason I do that. It works. And nowadays, we get our one shots done in about 4 hours. Sometimes they run over. In the past, I was really bad about this, and my one shots would go way over. I'm pretty good about it now. I figured a few things out, and I can keep my one shots to 4 hours. And if you're at a convention, you have no choice, because if you go over your block at a convention, your players will literally start standing up and walking away because they got other games to go to and stuff. And sorry, I gotta go, So there you go. That's how you get a one shot in the proper time block. All right, we'll do some more questions here. Just throw your questions in the chat and we'll grab them. I do want to let you guys know that we have, so last year we did a Kickstarter called Lairs and Legends, and we still have alt covers available. Now, if you're not familiar with our Lairs and Legends Kickstarter, it's basically these 2 books, Lairs and Legends and Loot and Lore, and combined, they have over 700 pages of Game Master resources for 5th edition D&D. Adventure, this entire book right here, Lairs and Legends, is full of adventures. There are 29 full-length adventures in it, if I recall the number correctly, and there's over 100 new monsters in here as well. And this is the alt cover for it. I don't know how many of these we have left, not a whole lot, but we do have some left still over on the DM Lair store, the dmlair.com. You can grab these things. Now, this one right here is Loot and Lore. This one contains the things that you might be making your adventure and you're like, oh, I need a trap, but I'm not good at making traps. You go in here to the chapter on traps and you find a trap. Or puzzles. I am bad at making puzzles. I hate making puzzles. Oh, guess what I do? Literally, for my games, I take puzzles out of our published resources and I use them. This has got standalone encounters in it. It has villains. It has adventure ideas, NPCs. It has a whole bunch of things to help you when you're making your adventures. So you can get these things on the dmlair.com. Like I said, we still have alt covers available. The alt covers are kind of hidden on the store, which I think is why we still have some, because people see like the standard covers and like, oh, get that. And the alt covers, you have to like click the drop down and then find the alt cover option, and so we still have some, but they're out there and they're very, very beautiful. And by the way, if you're used to getting Wizards of the Coast books, standard D&D books, they have really crappy print quality. Like their pages are thin, their binding is garbage. These books right here are high quality. It's 128 GSM pages, super thick, glossy. Obviously, the covers are super thick. This part of the cover, the spine is super thick. We have proper binding. It's the 16-page fold, thread-bound binding. Like, we have very high quality print jobs on our books. So you can head over there and grab that. It's really cool. And if you don't want physical books, you can get the digital bundle as well, and you can get the PDFs, and it comes with all the maps. Our digital bundle for it comes with the maps, the images of the maps, the PNGs and the JPEGs that you can like put into your virtual tabletop of choice and stuff. So everything there, you can run your games. There you go. All right. Questions now. Did you make your sacrifice to Torm yet? The Dungeon Coach. Hey, what's up, Dungeon Coach? How you doing, man? No, I don't sacrifice to Torm, Dungeon Coach. That is an antiquated practice. We just slaughter enemies these days. which is kind of a sacrifice, but yeah. Why go shopping during a one shot? Because you're in town. Somebody will suggest it. They will. You know they will. I know they will. That's a danger zone. Don't put them in town. What are the best things to get after the first campaign as a DM? The best things to get after your first campaign as a DM? I mean, shoot, like, you should know what your needs are. Like the things, think about the things when you were running your campaign or your game, the things that you felt least prepared for, or the things that you needed the most help with. Like, for instance, if you're running some game sessions and you're like, oh my gosh, like my players know all of the monsters, like they know all of the monsters out of the monster manual, then you're like, well, I need new monsters, right? So I mean, you could get our Lairs and Legends with new monsters. You could get, if you're playing Pathfinder 2, you could get the Bestiary 2 or the Bestiary 3 if you don't already have those. For D&D 5th edition, they have Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's and stuff. So like if you see when you're playing the game that something is needed, that is the resource you go and get. And I think everybody's gonna be different for that, right? Like the things that you want. Like maybe you're like, well, you know, we've been playing this game and stuff and we've been using M&Ms for tokens. And it's like, well, that gets old. I want to get some nice tokens. So you might go over to RPG Essentials, which I don't know. Do they still have, let's go see. RPG Essentials. Let's see if they still have pre-orders open. Like if you need tokens, this is a good place to go. I backed this project. I'm happy. Mark as received. I haven't actually received it yet. I don't know how to get this out of here. But anyway, yeah, you can pre-order still. You can still pre-order. So this right here, you're gonna get, like if you need tokens, you can get a crap ton of awesome, beautiful acrylic tokens with beautiful, let's go to the right page, beautiful artwork. Like, has he got some images here? Like, look at this, beautiful artwork tokens. They're like flat acrylic tokens. They're like indestructible, high quality. They will last you forever. They're super portable. So you can go grab some of these things. But my point is, and you can just type in RPG Essentials Kickstarter and you can find that really easily. But my point is that, you know, think about the things that were a struggle for you. Think about the things that were difficult for you as a game master. And then find resources out there that can help you shore up those things or make your life easier. That's my point. Vorpalbite says, I played Dungeons & Dragons back in 1974. I do not recognize D&D 5e, and I do not understand why people are so attached to their plot trains. Yes. Well, people like the story element these days, you know. Now, I think that you bring up a point, and I think there's a balance between, like, old school D&D is just like, death is around every corner. Ah! And you're like, you come in with a stack of characters, and then fortunately some of the editions you can make your character on an index card really fast, which I think was pretty cool. And you're like, all right, we're just gonna go through I'm gonna go through 10 characters this session, maybe. And then if somebody's like level 5, they're like, oh, you're a level 5, oh my goodness. So yes, old school was very gritty and very deadly. Nowadays, everybody's almost invincible. You can't die, right? And part of it is that there was, you know, this is one of the things that the Hickman Revolution introduced, the idea of having story behind our dungeons, behind our adventures, you know. And now the thing is that these days people have swung the pendulum all the way over here, right? Like instead of just going, well, why are you gonna go, like old school is, well, why are we gonna go into the dungeon? Because it's there. You know, let's go kill some monsters and take their gold because that's how we get XP. Let's go kill some things. Nowadays, people want a reason, a story that drives them to the adventure, right? So it's swung way over here, right? But this is kind of the way I rule. Like, I'm gonna have a story and I want that there, and there's gonna be a story, but death is still on the table. Like, your characters might die. And you'd better be careful. Ask my Pathfinder 2 players, you better be careful. Otherwise you're gonna be dead and you're gonna be rolling up a new character. So I think you can have both. You can have a satisfying story that's going on in your campaign, but you can also have death be on the table, because When death is a possibility, the game is more exhilarating. It's more interesting. It's more fun, in my opinion. When you have plot armor and you can't die, then things are just dumb. It's like, oh, roll my eyes. Like, the number one thing that makes me respect a game master is if, when I do something stupid as a player, which is often, and things happen and I should die, if a game master allows me to die and doesn't save my bacon, that immediately causes me to respect that game master. Now, if the game master is like, oh no, his character is gonna die, and then they do some shenanigans to make me not die, dude, come on, man, just let my character die. It's okay, I'm a big boy. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna throw a temper tantrum. I'm not gonna throw my dice across the room, all right? I'm just gonna make a new character. It's all right. I'm a big boy. So anyway, I think there's a balance that can be had that I would argue should be had, you know. All right, perusing for questions. If you cannot die, it is not a game. It becomes storytelling. 100%. 100%. That's very true. It's very true. 1970s D&D is what Pathfinder 2 Remastered is trying to be without getting rid of the complex story. Yeah, I can see that for sure. I think that's accurate. All right, I'm perusing for questions. If you posted a question I didn't answer it, you're welcome to repost it. We're not gonna smack you. Okay, if running a false Hydra campaign, again, I don't know what a false Hydra campaign is. People have brought this idea up of false Hydras before, and I have no clue what a false Hydra campaign is. So I guess we're gonna go to Google and see if I can figure out what a false Hydra campaign is. What is a false Hydra campaign in D&D? With a false Hydra's ability to be forgotten and make others forget it, an encounter with one will end up being, oh, that's an actual monster? How to run a false Hydra? What's a false Hydra campaign? All right, you know what? Google's not helping me today. I bet ChatGPT could help me. Can ChatGPT help me? What is a false Hydra campaign? Let's see if ChatGPT knows. It usually knows everything. Where is this thing? Okay. Yeah. Okay, what is a false Hydra campaign in D&D? Okay. A false Hydra campaign in Dungeons & Dragons refers to a game scenario centered around a creature called a false Hydra. Oh, it's about a false Hydra? So it's literally about a creature. This is not an official creature from the Dungeon Master Guide, okay? It's become popular in the D&D community through online sharing of custom campaigns and horror stories. Ooh. A false Hydra is known for its psychological horror elements. It is a monster that can sing a song that makes it invisible to those who hear it, and also has the ability to consume not only the bodies but also the memories of his victims from the minds of all who knew them. Okay, that sounds cool. This means that as it eats people, those people are forgotten by everyone else, leading to a chilling scenario where players might not even realize they are in danger until it's too late because they forget the people that are consumed by it. Okay. Campaigns featuring the false Hydra are typically focused on the themes of memory, perception, and reality, with players needing to uncover the mystery of what's happening to townsfolk. As townsfolk disappear and memories change, these campaigns are often highly atmospheric and can be deeply unsettling as they play on the fears of losing one's identity and the unreliability of one's senses. The creature's unique abilities make it a formidable and terrifying antagonist, and running a false Hydra campaign requires careful consideration to maintain the suspense and horror without frustrating players. It's an example of the creativity within the D&D community to create new and exciting challenges for players. All right, thanks, ChatGPT. What was the question? I just learned what a false Hydra is. Oh man. Where was that question? I can't see it. Oh, I can't find the question now. Oh geez, it was something about how do you run a false Hydra campaign? Was that the question? I mean, geez, I don't know. How do you run a false Hydra campaign? It's probably not gonna tell me. Oh gosh, it actually is giving me a step-by-step guide. Holy crap. because I've never done this before. Well, there you go. Setting the scene, subtle clues, introducing the horror, a gradual buildup, the unseen threat, the song. Oh wow, it's doing everything. It's giving me all the steps and everything. I mean, I can just read this to you. I've never run a False Hydra campaign or a game before, guys. I don't really know the answer. I would have to think about it and do some research on it, like I'm literally doing right now. So I don't really have a good answer for this question. Henrik says, why do we ask Luke when we could be asking ChatGPT? I'll tell you why. Do you want to know why you ask me? I'm going to give you 3 reasons you ask me. 1, ChatGPT is not nearly as handsome as I am. That's the first one. Number 2, I'm far more entertaining than ChatGPT. I mean, come on. I'm funny. I'm like, you know, I can do public speaking crap well, you know? And then the third reason that you ask me instead of ChatGPT is that you don't have to read. Like, you can just listen to me, which makes it easier than ChatGPT. And 4, like, I need a job, okay? You can't put me out of business by going to ChatGPT. That'd be like, you know, wrong to let AI replace my job. You can't do that to me, okay? It's wrong. I don't know. That's why you should ask me. And Ananium says Luke has cats. That's why we ask him. Yes, that's it. That's exactly why. You asked me because I have cats. And it does have bacon. What's your favorite innocuous item to use or exploit for good laughs? An empty chest with 1 copper piece at the bottom of the chest. Most of my players, if they come across a chest that has 1 copper piece in the bottom of the chest, they will close the chest and walk away in terror. And they'll probably, you know, use some adult language on me or something. So that's what I do. There you go. ChatGPT talks back to you with voice now. Really? It can do voice? Wow. That's crazy. All right, let's find some more questions. Lucas Balch says, I don't know why, but Luke using ChatGPT for the first time is kind of cute. I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time for research. All the time. I use it a lot. That is one of the biggest uses of ChatGPT I found is research. Like, it can give me a lot of good research very, very fast. Like, if I need information about a given topic, ChatGPT just piles down tons of information and then I read it, you know, and it's beautiful. So that is a big thing. I have a player who loves to die. He's on his 6th warlock, but his last 2 new characters was just his old warlock. Same name, backstory, most stats, etc. What would you do as a DM? Oh gosh, what would I do? I mean, honestly, I don't think I care. I just don't care. The only thing that I would ask the player is I would say, look, dude, you always bring the same warlock after you die. And he's like, yeah, because I like it. I'm like, that's cool. I respect that. I have one request. You need to come up with a reason that the same warlock keeps coming back. Like, all I want from you is a reasonable in-game reason. Like, give me something. You know, your pact is with a demon lord. And if you die, they make you come back. And every time you die, it extends the term of your service. And I don't know. Give me something. Give me something that justifies it, is what I would say. You know, because the thing is that if the player wants to play the same character, you know, I'm not gonna be like, no, you can't play a warlock again. You gotta play something else. Dude, I want to play a warlock, you know. And then you're like, well, then just play a warlock that's different. And the guy's like, dude, I like my, who cares, man? It's you know. So I would just make them justify it somehow, come up with something in game, you know. That's what I would probably say, because I don't. If he wants to play a warlock, let him play a warlock. I'm not gonna be all like about it, you know. Have you ever seen the movie Oblivion? Nope. Any advice for running a D&D campaign for one person? I am the DM. Pickle Bandit. I ran a campaign for a friend in high school. I was the game master and he was the player, and it was just a one-person campaign. And my only advice for it, from my vague recollection, is you just got to balance your encounters differently. I mean, that's really the only thing. That's really it. Oh, actually, I ran a D&D campaign for my daughters once too. My daughter was the player and I was the game master. So now when my player in high school, my player Dane was the only player. He was the only character as well. It was just his character. He didn't have any NPCs helping him or anything. It was just him. And we were playing 2nd edition D&D, and I just balanced the encounters for him. It wasn't that big of a deal, because really combat is the only thing that really causes a problem a lot of times when you have one character. Now for my daughter, I did a little bit differently for her. We were playing 5th edition, and she played 2 characters, and I, as the game master, played 2 PCs. And so I played 2 PCs and she played 2 PCs. So she had a complete party of 4 as they were doing their adventures. And so we did it differently, you know, and it worked. It worked really well. I didn't spend too much time role playing, like as far as like, you know, in character stuff. The 2 PCs I was playing, I was mostly focused on running the dungeon and the game and stuff, you know. But it worked. It was enjoyable. It was fun. So there's a couple different options you have if you're just playing with one person. Question: having a hard time coming up with rewarding treasure for my PCs that aren't OP. My players are level 8, level 9 with a pretty good amount of gold. Any suggestions for good rewards? So we literally have an issue of Lair magazine out there that gives you tons and tons of things you can do for rewarding players that aren't just gold and aren't just magic items, because magic items can be OP. And gold, if they've already got tons of gold, it's like, why do we need more gold? Unless we can buy magic items with our gold, in which case we're more OP. Woo! Okay, so let me see. I'm gonna go find this issue of Lair magazine. Let's go to the DM Lair store, and I have a video that talks about it as well. So if you want to just listen to a video about it, you can do that as well. So go to the store. Let's go shop. Let's go to Lair magazine on the store, and you should be able to search for it. Rewards. It's called Rewards and Recognition. Coin and Courage. There you go. Coin and Courage is the issue of Lair magazine. It has our rewards and recognition system in it. And in our rewards and recognition system, you can't really read it because it's too small, but it gives lots of different ways you can reward players besides just gold and magic items. And it gives you some tables with specific suggestions and stuff. So it's pretty cool. I have a video too. If you go to my YouTube channel and just search for rewards and recognitions, you're going to find a video that will go through a lot of this stuff too. I mean, off the top of my head, you know, you have to reward them with different things. Like they get a property like an inn or you know, a shack or something. They get a title. They might become the Duke, or they might become an Earl or something like that. So you just have to reward them with different things. They might get a favor. So this powerful NPC owes them a favor. They put that in their pocket. A few adventures down, they're like, hey, that person owes us a favor. We could get something. So there's a variety of different things that you can do to reward your players with things that aren't gold and aren't magic items. You really just, I mean, you can get these resources, you can watch my video, or you can just kind of brainstorm it, you know, and think of different alternate things and ways that you can reward them. Running a 5e Spelljammer campaign. If my characters want to build a ship, should I use the 2nd edition rules or something modern? I have most of my experience from 2 or 3.5, so used to those rules. So doesn't 5th edition have a Spelljammer like box set that came out? Doesn't it have rules in there for like ship combat and building ships and stuff? Because that seems like if you're running a Spelljammer game that takes place in like space, it seems like their rule set would have rules for ships and ship combat and maybe building ships and stuff. So, but it has that in there, doesn't it? Does anybody know? Does their Spelljammer thing that for 5th edition that came out have that stuff? It doesn't. So Soul Saver says no ship combat really. Darkwing says lol, it does not. Silas Cloud says Wizard's new one doesn't include that. Laughing my butt off. Okay. So you're telling me that Wizards of the Coast released an $80, I think it was an $80 box set for Spelljammer, where one of the like the central ideas in Spelljammer is traveling by ship around space. And they don't have rules for ship combat. They don't have some basic rules about making your ship or something like that. Your $80 box set, and they don't have those rules in it? Is that what you're telling me? You gotta be crapping me. What? Who would do that? Wow. This is the D&D crisis right here. Somebody needs to make a video about this. The D&D crisis just got worse. And their faces like, and there's like flames in the background, you know, and then there's like an arrow pointing down, you know, one of those down arrows like this. Like that's the video you got to make. Like D&D crisis, raw. Good freaking prayer, man. You know, there's this scene from Dumb and Dumber. Have you guys seen Dumb and Dumber? Where he's like, the guy has a dumb idea, and the other guy turns to him and he's like, you know, just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, you do something like this and totally redeem yourself. Yeah. So we've probably ripped on them a little bit enough about that massive, horrible oversight. So we'll just move on at this point. Oh, your actual question? Yeah. So like if they didn't give those rules in the 5th edition rule set, then you should use whatever previous edition of Spelljammer you know best. Whether it's 2nd edition, whether it's 3.5, whatever you have, whatever you think you want to use, just use it and retrofit it and figure it out. Like, you know, if they sold you an $80 box set and didn't give you the rules in there that you need, then, you know, you'll have to just go scavenge from somewhere else. Now, I can say that I have some 2nd edition box sets, and those are really good. Like I have a couple of those and they're really nice. So I would wager a guess that like you could say a lot of bad things about TSR, like the way they ran their company, like they did not know how to run a business. You can say all of that, but they produced pretty darn good products from what I've seen. So I would say that if you go to a 2nd edition product, you have a good chance of it being fairly good, in my opinion. So, you know, but use whatever you're familiar with, whatever you can get your hands on. You're going to have to like tweak things anyway to get it to work for 5th edition. You know, that's life. Matthew Chamberlain, what's up, dude? How you doing, buddy? All right, we're looking for questions. Silas Cloud says, Wizards, who is ever going to have combat on a ship in this ship-based setting? It's a good question. Apparently nobody, because there are no rules for it. How would you handle a group of level 3 players that want to hunt for a dragon only for the purpose of taming the dragon? Oh, how would I handle that? How would I handle that? I would probably tell them, this is what I would tell them. I would want them to know the challenge and the risk set before them from the outset. So I would say, look it, like what kind of dragon are we talking about?
All right, are we talking about a big dragon or a small dragon? And they're like, well, a big dragon. Well, now okay, a big dragon, an adult dragon, or an ancient dragon, let's be reasonable here. Dragons aren't stupid. Even the dumbest dragon has human intelligence. And that's probably the white dragon. I think they're the dumbest ones. So even a dumb dragon has human intelligence. These are sentient, reasoning creatures, usually highly intelligent. So they're not just beasts and animals that you can tame. It doesn't work that way. It never works that way, especially if they're an adult. Now, if you can go, now you're level 3, so let's say you want to go after a young dragon. Okay, that's probably more reasonable because, you know, the big dragons they're not going to be tamed. They've lived for hundreds of years, and they're going to look at you and be like, yo, dude, what up? I'm not dumb. You're not just going to tame me. So that's probably not going to work. But now you're level 3, so maybe you go after a baby dragon, you know? So at that point, you're like, okay, cool. Well, you know, they're immature, so their reasoning ability hasn't quite surfaced and hasn't matured yet, right? So there's a greater potential for your being able to influence them. But you need to be aware that you are still dealing with a rational, sentient, thinking creature that has human or above human intelligence. So even if you find a blue dragon hatchling, that blue dragon hatchling is gonna initially have probably the reasoning capabilities of a toddler, let's say, which isn't super high. But you're gonna have to spend years training this thing. Years, right? And it's just a wormling. Years of training, so anybody can almost walk up to this thing and just kill it. It's not going to help you in combat. You got to get a small one, and you're going to have to spend years training it. But at this point, the idea of training it or taming it is a little bit not quite that way. So let's say you get a blue dragon hatchling. All right, cool. You get it as a hatchling, and you're like, we're going to train it or tame it. Well, it's like, well, you know, it's not actually training, and taming is a bad way to think about it. When you're dealing with a intelligent creature that has a human or above human intelligence, you're not taming you're not taming it. You're raising it. You are raising it exactly much like you would a human child or an elf or a dwarf. You're raising it. You know, you're teaching it what you know. You're teaching it your principles. You're teaching it your morals and stuff. Now, you can get into a debate whether a blue dragon is inherently evil or whether it's evil or good based upon its upbringing. That's a debate for a different day. But let's just assume that it can be shaped to be good or morally distinct from its lineage, right? So at that point, you're like, okay, cool. We're going to raise this blue dragon up to be our ally. Great. You have years ahead of you, years, right? And the dragon's going to live for 1,000 years, so you're all going to die before it does, right? And then at that point, you're raising it up, but it's not like your pet that you're just going to tell it to go do things. No, this is more like a companion. This is a friend. This is like an elf or a dwarf or a halfling that you know and have companionship with and are friends with, right? You're not just going to be like, go do the thing. And, you know, it's going to help you. It might be an ally of you. It might view you much like it would a parent or something. But the relationship is not that of, you know, a dog. Like I have a dog, you know, I take my dog outside. I tell my dog, go potty. She knows what that means. She waddles off and she does her business. And then if she wanders back to me before I call her, I tell her again, go potty. And she turns around and she goes back out there. You know, she just obeys. She's a dog. She's been trained. And then when I say, come here, she gets up and she comes here. She comes to my voice like she's been trained. Dragons aren't dogs. My dog has like, you know, the intelligence of like a gnat. You know, but dragons are super intelligent. It doesn't work that way. So I think I would explain, if my players want to go do this thing, I would explain to them these things, these concepts, and the breadth of what they want to do, so that they are fully cognizant of this stuff. And if they have their heart set on going after an adult dragon and it's an evil one, I will tell them, well, you should be aware that these things are usually bad and it could very well kill you. And if you can find an adult dragon, because you have to spend some time finding it, hunting it down, you know, and getting information about it, there's a good chance it's just going to burn you up or electrocute you in the case of a blue one, right? And so I'm going to give my players a bunch of information about the reality of the world and how things work. And then at that point, I will tell them, okay, so now that you've been fully briefed and you know what's up, you tell me, what are you doing? And if they still want to go do the thing, then great, let's go do the thing. And we will let things resolve naturally. So I think I wouldn't tell them no. I would make sure that they have a full understanding of the implications and how complex and what they want to do. And then if they still want to do it, all right, giddy up, let's go play this game. So I think that's how I would approach it. All right, some more questions around here, folks. Let's get some more questions. The dragon makes them a pet. You could. The dragon could totally make him a pet. Oh, sorry, cat. Oh, I got 5 cats around here. Mommy. Mommy cat. You guys want to give my cats some treats? We're gonna keep doing questions here, but we're gonna give some treats to my cat. We'll have a cat strike really quick. So let's get him going. All right, watch your butt, Squirty. Watch your butt. It's right here. These guys. Watch my dog get up. My dog's gonna wake up too. I guarantee you. Now, the dog didn't seem to care about the noise, but as soon as she smells this, I guarantee you she's gonna get up. All right, yep. At some point, my dog is gonna wake up and she's gonna drive the cats off. I guarantee you. Unless she's like just totally out of it, which she might be. She might just be dead asleep. Totally possibility. By the way, folks, don't forget, we have a giveaway going on tonight. You can win a copy of Into the Fae, a level 1 to 5 adventure module for 5th edition, or you can get DM Lair store credit. We have a whole bunch of really awesome stuff on the DM Lair store you can get as well with store credit. In fact, we currently still have copies of the alt covers of Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore. These alt covers are absolutely gorgeous. They're like matte finish with glossy parts and stuff. These 2 books together, you get over 700 pages of Game Master resources, 29 complete adventures, over 100 monsters, traps, puzzles, standalone encounters. It's beautiful. If you want to get the digital versions, the 100% digital versions without the hardcovers, you can get that as well. And it comes with the image files of the maps you need, so you can put them in the virtual tabletop that you use. Like, it's really cool. Lots of awesome resources as well over on the dmlair.com. And let's go back to the cats. But anyway, if you win the giveaway, you could use your store credit to get that stuff if you'd like. Hey, Freight Train's in the house. What's up, dude? I saw something up there. Where was the thing on the other hand? Okay, how would you handle a campaign themed around powerful relics scattered around the world, being wielded by warlords without letting the players get OP from the items or relics they might steal? I mean, there are multiple ways you can implement that, okay? I think one of the ways that you can implement it is by making the artifacts and relics evil. Generally speaking, whenever I have put an evil item in the game, my players don't want to use it because they don't want to turn evil and they don't want to do evil things. Now, I have had another player who will. He used it was either the Hand of Vecna or the Eye of Vecna. I forget which one of it. and he had no problem. He thought it was awesome. So you have that risk. So it's an evil item being used by an evil warlock. So that's one deterrent that you could possibly use. I think the other thing that I would do is these relics and artifacts, I think you would have to implement a mechanic by which it's not easy to use them. In other words, you can't just pick the relic up and be like, aha, all I have to do is attune to this, and then I have ultimate power. No, you don't do that. Aha, it's a relic. Cool. Well, what the heck is a relic? What is a relic? Because we don't have relics in the game. We have magic items and we have artifacts, but a relic is something different. Well, a relic has a different game mechanic. A relic, there are two things that happen. First of all, this relic is sentient and it has to choose you. Your goals and its goals must be aligned, and it chooses you. That's the first thing. So you have to share its goals, like really share its goals, not just be like, can I make a deception check? No. You have to actually share its goals. Like, and most players won't, right? But the warlocks did. And so you have to share its goals because it has to choose you, right? So that'll exclude the players right off the bat. But the other thing is even if they somehow do have those same goals, is a relic has a bonding process whereby it takes a good amount of time for you to be in contact with that relic so that your affinity with it grows, your bond with it grows, and then you slowly gain more and more of its powers until you have ultimate power. And so if you implement mechanics like that, then what you have are powerful relics in the world that these warlocks can use, but when your players get their hands on them, we can't actually just get ultimate power. Okay, well then what are we supposed to do with them? Well, you got to destroy them or, collect them and destroy them or something, whatever you want to do, whatever your game is going to be, right? But all you got to do is implement, and then those are just ideas for mechanics you can implement, but you put a mechanic in place so that they can get the thing, because that's what they're doing, and they can stop the warlocks because that's what they're doing, but they don't get to just use these powerful magic items all themselves. So that's what you do. Now, your players might be like, oh, that's a cop-out. Well, it's an intentional game mechanic choice for reasons, very, very good reasons. Now, what you could also do is you can still put these relics in your game and your players could use them, but it takes time. There is actually right now I am writing Escape from the Fae, which is the sequel to Into the Fae. So my first Kickstarter was Into the Fae, a level 1 to 5 adventure module. And that was our first Kickstarter. It's out there. You can get on the DM Lair store, etc. But I'm writing the sequel to it right now, Escape from the Fae, which will take a party from level 5 to level 12. That sounds about right. And in Escape from the Fae, and by the way, Escape from the Fae, the sequel of Escape to the Fae is going to start coming out in January to our DM Lair patrons at the $25 tier and above. They'll come out starting in January to patrons. So if you liked Into the Fae, you're going to start getting the sequel coming in January. And we're going to be publishing that over the course of next year as a digital resource for our patrons at the $25 tier and above. And then what we're going to do is once we get it all written, I have to write the thing, and that's going to take a while because it's a module. Once we get the thing written, then what we'll do in early 2020, somewhere in 2025, because I'm going to be writing it all next year. In 2025, we'll have a Kickstarter to put the thing into one book and actually print the thing, so people can have a physical copy of it. So anyway, my point is that I'm currently writing Escape from the Fae, and we have a mechanic in there called an affinity mechanic, because one of the things, the players, the whole concept of the module is that the players, their characters are now trapped in the Feywild. I call it the Fey plane, but they're trapped in the Fey plane and they have to escape. But the queen below, she has sealed off all means of escape because they did some bad things, and now her revenge is, I'm not letting you leave. And so the players' characters are trapped in the Fey plane and they have to escape. And one of the only ways they can escape is by taking on the evil queen. And in order to take on the evil queen, they have to gather 10, it's either 10 or 9 or something like that, of these special artifacts. They're called charms of the Queen Below. They have to gather up these charms one by one from different lieutenants of the Queen Below that are scattered around the world in this area where they all live. And then these artifacts that they gather, these charms, are powerful magic items. But what we did is we implemented, when I say we, Goliath Cleric, who's in chat, he's like our lead dude. He's our director of new product development. He does a lot of our writing. He does game design reviews and stuff. He came up with this idea. But he came up with this idea of this affinity mechanic. And the idea of the affinity mechanic is that as your players are gathering up these charms, it takes time after they attune to them to actually get all of the magical benefits of them. And they have to do specific things as well. Like there's this one that allows you to, one of the first charms the characters can get is that it allows you to capture the voices of other people and other creatures. And then it allows you to use their voices and talk like them and pretend that you are them and fool people. And so part of the affinity mechanic is that you have to capture so many voices from different people, and then once you've captured a certain amount of voices, by the way, when you capture someone's voice, they can no longer talk. So you capture a certain number of voices, and then at that point, you gain more affinity with the item and you unlock more of the powers of that item. And so that was our solution in Escape from the Fae to prevent the players from very quickly getting all of these powerful artifacts that give them tons of power. And so that was what we put in place to kind of check that and hold it in balance a little bit. So anyway, the point is, answering your question, something like that is what you want to aim for, right? Sith Lord, yes, exactly. The attunement is more of a process instead of, hey, it just happens. Exactly. Attunement takes some time. And shoot, if you're talking about a sentient artifact, it might not give you all of its powers unless you do certain things for it. It might have requirements of you. It might have things it wants you to do. Otherwise, hey, I'm not going to give you all of my services. I'll tease you with this, that, or the other, and I'm not going to give you everything. That's exactly what you do. You make access to its powers limited somehow. You put a gate in place. Whatever that gate is, it can be whatever rule mechanic you want, but you put a gate there. It prevents access unless certain circumstances are met. And then you as the game master control those circumstances. And this can give your players something really, really cool too, because they're like, oh, I want to unlock everything that thing has. What do I have to do to unlock it? And that can be really exciting for them, All right. Somebody said Gleam isn't working. Is that actually true, or is that just for one person? Can somebody else verify? Matthew says, what about giving the relic as a drawback? It makes you strong but vulnerable. Oh, you know what? Gleam? If you're using a VPN, a lot of times Gleam won't work. You need to turn off your VPN. I don't know why, don't ask me. Probably because it prevents scams. That'd be my guess. Because if you use VPNs, you can just do a bunch of scammy, crappy activity. That'd be my guess. Turn your VPN off, or maybe your firewall, or take down all of your internet security protocols if you need to. That's my only guess. So what was it? Matthew said, what about giving the artifact a drawback? It makes you strong but vulnerable. That is an option, but I'm gonna tell you from my experience, anytime I have given my players a magic item that gives you a specific power, but there is some drawback that makes you weaker or has a curse or some sort of downfall or bad part, my players never want to use it. Never. They have always just been like, we'll go sell that. Or, we'll give that to like some NPC we don't like, and then laugh at them when they get screwed. So, your mileage may vary. You can try it. Based on my experience, players never want to use them. And so it's not worth my time even creating it. Like I'm like, oh, this cool thing, but and they're just like, but it makes me have barnacles on my skin. Yeah, but it gives you all of these amazing benefits. Yeah, but I'm going to be covered by barnacles. Nah, I'll pass. and they don't want to use it. And so it's like, why spend your time making it if you know they're not going to use it? So, you know, but it's an option. I would not do that because I know my players would just throw it out, but it might work for other groups. Freight Train took that deal. Yeah, just turn off. Okay, look it. Turn off your VPN, turn off your antivirus, turn off your firewall, and it might work. What would you say about making all magic items that give a bonus but also a negative? I mean, if that's going to be a thing in your world, every magic item has a benefit and a drawback, well, then that's a thing in your world and players don't have a choice. It's like, well, if you want to use a magic item, any magic item, there's going to be a drawback. At that point, you have a totally different situation on the table, and I can totally see players going for that because it's like you don't have a choice. You know, it's like good stuff and bad stuff. That's always the case. And so I can see that working, but that requires you to like make that a thing in your world and you craft that into your campaign, and that's like a total thing, right? And have some story, have some reason as to why that is, you know, like for whatever reason, when you're making magic items and you're putting power into it, like, you know, there's like the yin and the yang. There's like, we can put this beneficial magic into it, but like there's always this stream of negative energy that's going to seep into the magic creation process. You cannot avoid it. So we can control like what the beneficial property is, but something bad is going to slip in there, and no wizard ever has been able to stop it. And so that's just the way things are. And you can make that a thing in your games. And if you make it where everything is like that, well, now you have something interesting, right? And that could be really cool. But if most magic items are generally just good, and there's every so often there's one that has a negative property to it, most of the time players are just going to be like meh, and they throw it out. I think the exception to that, of course, is artifacts. A lot of times artifacts have negative properties, but artifacts are a little different too. You know, that's a different story and a different beast. The benefits of artifacts are so overwhelmingly powerful that most people are gonna just accept the drawbacks because the power is so great. But then we're talking about something that's crazy powerful. So it could work, but you gotta really make the benefits worth it, right? If it's not working for you, there's nothing you can do about it. We've demonstrated that it is working for everybody else, which means that it's not a problem with the service at all. So I don't have a solution at that point. All right, more questions. Have you ever run playtest materials in a one-shot or game 5e? Is there anything I would need to look out for to make sure everything is fun for everyone? Well, I mean, you know, if you're running playtest material, you just need to remember it's playtest material. I think that, which means that it could be improperly balanced, it could be overpowered, it could be underpowered, there could be unintended things. The rules wording might not account for different situations, and there might be like gaps and loopholes and stuff that you're gonna have to rule on and make changes to. And I think there's nothing wrong with using playtest material. You just need to be very, very, very clear with your players. Hey guys, this is playtest material, which means I will almost absolutely change something about it after we start using it. And you all need to be very clear. We all need to be very, very clear that we're not going to throw a temper tantrum and say, you're nerfing it. No. Playtest material. Playtest. It will get nerfed. It will get changed. The only question is how. So I think as long as you set expectations so that your players understand playtest material, and that you are probably going to change stuff after they start using it. Like they got this new cool thing and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Ah, we're invincible. Well, don't get too excited, because that's the first clue that I'm going to change it on you. All right. And you should be aware of that. So set expectations, introduce the material, and then tweak it as you need to tweak it. Now you can do it in a one shot, you can do it in your campaign. It doesn't matter necessarily. There's obviously more impact if it's in a campaign, but it's okay. You know, you just have to be able to tweak things on the fly. As soon as you see a problem, be like, whoa, let's change that. As long as you're willing to do that and your players are okay with that and they're cool and they're not going to throw temper tantrums and go off in a corner and cry and like chuck dice at your face, then I think you're fine. But if you have players that are just they're not gonna go for that, and once they get the cool new shiny, they will throw a fit if you try to take it away, well, then you're probably better off not using playtest material, and I would submit to you, perhaps better off finding more mature players. So, but I think set expectations, I think you'd be fine. And then tweak things as you go. I don't think it's a big deal. Most people are mature enough to handle that. All right, throw some more questions, folks. If you posted a previous question and you have not gotten a response, you can post it again. And moderators will not smack you. They will not throw their wrenches at you. It'll be okay. Trendia says, question, can you possibly show the difference in binding side by side of a Wizards of the Coast publication and a DM Lair 5e publication? My 2 ebooks and 5 ebooks look similar, and my second edition is intact from 1990. Yes, I will 100% show you the difference. Give me 1 second. I will get some books for you. Okay, this is what we're gonna look at. I have an Advanced Dungeons and Dragons book. We'll look at this. I have a second edition book. We'll look at this. I have a 3.5 book. We'll look at this. And then we will look at the player's handbook. So let's start with the early editions and see what they have going on. So this right here, I don't know if the focus is gonna do very well. This is the problem that we're gonna have. My cameras are not gonna be able to focus very well. But this Advanced Dungeons and Dragons book has just glue binding. It's just glue binding. It's the cheap glue binding. It's still holding in there, you know, like this. Honestly though, this book is in very good condition. It's got little scuffs and stuff on it, but it's been treated very well. But it has the cheap binding, you know, it's just glue stick binding. Let me show you the thread binding if you can see it. So if you can see here, you can see how every 16 pages are grouped together, and then you see how they got the little spaces. That's because they're grouped together and they're sewn together. And so first of all, it helps it lay flat better. And it's just a higher quality binding, and it will last longer, you know. But you can't really see it on my camera, but it's thread sewn binding. It's higher quality. This is one of our books, right? Now, this one here from AD&D has the cheap glue binding, but it's still in good condition, not a problem. And then we'll go to the second edition book, and the second edition book is definitely falling apart, because I have used this book a lot when I was playing. This book got used for a long time. This is the player handbook from second edition. And it has the cheap binding, it looks like. It's harder to tell on this. Why is it harder to tell? This might be thread sewn binding. I don't want to ruin it looking at it. It is. This is thread sewn. I can just barely make it out because it's so old and beat up. But this one right here looks like you can't really see it too well. But this is the thread sewn binding. So this has got good binding on it. And then the 3.5 The 3.5, I use this book a lot too. Now this one, they cut some corners on this book. So when you look at this book, what you can see, especially here, the color does not go all the way into the binding, and that's because they didn't use proper bleeds when they made this. So right before it gets to the binding, the pages turn white, and so they didn't do the bleeds all the way through and stuff. I don't know. They didn't lay the book out properly, and so I don't think this is thread binding. This is just glue stuck binding. Yeah, this is just glue, cheap glue binding. Is what this looks like. Now it's still holding together. It's still fine. It's not a problem or whatever. And then the 5th edition book. The 5th edition book is cheap glue binding. That's very clear. And they also didn't do the bleeds properly because it gets white before it goes to the binding itself. My cameras aren't super great for this, you know. And this book is totally falling apart. I've been using this for like almost a decade. So it's getting my original player's handbook is literally pages are falling out, but I keep that at my office that I have, so I don't have to carry it back and forth. But this is just cheap glue binding. I might be able to find a picture of thread binding, thread sewn binding. I might be able to find a good picture of this for you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. Here we go. This isn't too bad. So this one right here, open in new tab. So in a little bit. There you go. So this is the good binding. They take generally groups of 16 pages, and then each of these groups is sewn together right there, and then all the pages together they glue. This is the high quality binding. That's what the high quality binding. Now if we try to find, I don't know what they call the cheap glue binding. Cheap glue binding. Okay, this is a good one. There we go. Open image in new tab. So this is the cheap glue binding. And this is what Wizards of the Coast uses for all of their books that I can see. I think actually, interestingly enough, there was one 5th edition book I have that has good binding. It has the thread bound binding like this, but all the other ones on my bookcase have this, where it's literally just the pages are just individually cut, and then they just get stuck into the spine and they get glued, you know. And this is the binding that's lower quality and will fall apart faster. Now, if you take care of your books and don't beat the crap out of them, you know, it still could last for a long time, right? It's just not as high quality. This is a fact. So anyway, I hope that's a little helpful. Hey, Greg Pete, what's up, dude? Trying to avoid spoilers, but for Escape from the Fae, does it start immediately after the Twisted Tree from Into the Fae, or is there a gap between the two? It starts immediately. It picks up immediately there. That's the entire point. So Into the Fae leads up to a final confrontation with Chittering Lucy Slopgrowth, who is a hag. And so after defeating Chittering Lucy Slopgrowth at the Twisted Tree, I don't know if that was the actual name of the place, but it was her like den, her lair. After fighting her and defeating her, she was the one that was leading the invasion of Airedale. And the Queen below at that point was like, whoa, you defeated Chittering Lucy Slopgrowth. Okay, gloves are off at this point. And immediately she closes all of the planar travel to get out of the Fae. And then the group is trapped in the Fae, right? In the Feywild. I call it the Fae plane. And then at that point, that's exactly where the module picks up. So the module assumes that your group has played the first part, but if they haven't, that's fine, because you can just make up a different reason that they're trapped in the Fae plane. Come up with it, because the entire module is based on the premise of having to escape. So you just gotta have a reason for them to be there. But yeah, it picks up right there. It picks up right there after. So that's how I designed it. wanted to. Hey, excuse me, Squirty, knock it off. You're gonna get it. I want to get these out of the way. Oh, I missed my question. I started to read it and I missed it. Jesus, Squirty, I don't care. Stop pushing my little. Getting her attention. Will you get your nose out of my camera? Come on, move, move, move. She makes this noise when she gets pet. She's like, what was the question? I keep on reading it. Crap. Where was this question? Well, I don't know. I'll just pick a new one. I wanted to use the use an Otari setting in Pathfinder 2, but change some of the NPCs. Wanted to give them Gazette, but it has the old NPCs. How do I handle it so it doesn't break immersion? Change the Gazette, dude. Like, change the names in the Gazette. How would I do that? I would probably... It's a PDF, right? I think that they have that as a PDF. So what I would do is I have Adobe Acrobat Pro. I would open up the PDF and I would literally change the names. I would open it up in a PDF editor and change the names. That's what I would do. That's 100% what I would do. Change it. What you can also do is, if you can't edit the PDF for whatever reason, which you can, you can copy paste the whole thing into a Word document and then just edit the names then. So I would change the names. That's probably the easiest way to do it, I think. You know, otherwise you gotta like think of different reasons and stuff. Nah, just change the names. I want to show you guys something. I have something really cool to show you guys. All right, so we have a Kickstarter that we finished up about a couple months ago, The Secret Art of Game Mastery. And for anybody who has backed the Kickstarter and is going to get some cool stuff, pre-orders are still open, so you can still get The Secret Art of Game Mastery. It's a bunch of information about being a game master and helping you become a better game master and all that kind of stuff. It has like how to prepare games, how to run games, a couple journals with notes. Anyway, it's a really cool project. That's not my point. I'm not trying to necessarily plug it. What I want to do is I want to show you guys that we have our dummies. Our dummies came in for the books, and I want to show you these things because they're pretty cool. I'll get some room here on my keyboard area. So, this right here is the box set. I need to make sure I don't end up. Okay, cool. It looks good. This is the box set right here. So, nice, hard, very thick box that it comes in. And then, now I do want to say this is a dummy. There's no printing on it. It's literally a blank dummy. No printing whatsoever. It's just to show me what the product's going to look like before they start printing stuff. All right. So this is the box, and then it has 3 books, right? This right here is the Secret Art of Game Mastery book right here. And you know, open it up and stuff. It's empty. It's a dummy. It's totally empty. But it shows you, like, you know, this is how thick the pages are, which is very thick. It's 128 GSM. We went, you know, very, very high quality. It has our beautiful thread-bound binding and all that kind of stuff. The spine is super thick. The cover is super thick. It's all very, very beautiful. And then, so that's one of the books. And then the other two books are journals that you can write in. And we designed these things so that you can replace the pages as needed because you write in them and fill them up. And so I'm going to take out that guy. It's in there to protect it. it is a 6-ring binder, just like so. And these are again super thick pages, and they're all empty. Obviously, there's no printing in this yet. And you can see that these things are thick. These are big, thick boys. There's lots of pages in here for you to take your journals and prepare your games and stuff. You know, and because it's a 6-ring binder, these things aren't gonna like rip out on you super easily. But open it up, you can take the pages out, you can print new ones, make new ones, stick it in here, you know, and that's the binder. And then these two guys here, close that guy up. These two are the exact same. This would be the secret art of preparation and the secret art of note taking, are those two guys. So they're pretty much the same. But they go in there like so. I'm gonna put this back together now. Put this back in here so it protects my dummy. Put that guy back in there. Now what I want to show you is, so that'll go on your bookcase and look all pretty and stuff. Yeah. This one right here is the special edition leather cover. Ugh. These things are heavy, dude. These things are stinking heavy. This feels like... Hold on a second. Hold on a second. All right. I have an 8-pound weight and a 10-pound... This is a 15-pound kettlebell. This is an 8-pound weight. 8-pound weight. It's not 8 pounds. It's close though. It's close. It's probably about 6 pounds. I think this thing feels like about 6 pounds or so. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go put my kettlebell and stuff back. But it's a beefy boy. Okay, so now I want to show you these are the leather covers. So again, there's no printing or anything. It's just purely to show you like what they look like. And then obviously the insides are just white, you know. But this is the leather cover. It's essentially it's a hard leather cover. It's beautiful. And it'll have the alt cover. It'll have the alt cover printed on it. Nice, beautiful embossing and foil. It'll be absolutely gorgeous. Now, at some point, they will literally send me, before we do our full print run, they will send me the actual books with all the printing done, and I will have those in my hands. You know, and then when I get those, I can show them off to you guys as well. And then these things look the same. Like, you know, these are going to be the exact same, except that it has leather on the covers. It's still a 6-ring binder and all that kind of good jazz. So, and then what I have, at some point they're gonna send me the Game Master screen as well to review, and then what else do they owe me? That's it. Yeah, it's the slipcase, the 3 books, and the Game Master screen. Yeah. So they're working on the prototype right now for the Game Master screen. They were sending us photos and videos of it. But they will be sending that to me at some point as well for me to review. And when I get that, I'll show you as well. I also have I also have all of the interiors. Like, they printed off the interiors that I have to look through these. I need to look through all of these interiors and review them. Usually that's not that hard because this company, Regent, is like top notch. They do an amazing job. So
usually it's not that hard to review all those things, and there's never been a problem. It's just like, yep, it looks good to me. Check that box, baby. So, anyway, that's exciting. I gotta, but that's a lot of work. A little bit of work. I gotta review those. So, if you want to get those, we do still have pre-orders open as well over on. Just look for this. I mean, somebody can there's probably links in the chat for it. It's called The Secret Art of Game Mastery, and you can get your pre-orders for it. £7? Yeah. Me just imagining the shipping costs for that. Yeah, the shipping costs are not cheap. They're not cheap. I can tell you that. All right, I'm now looking for more questions. While DMing, I charmed my players to force them things they won't typically do. Oh, should I? Should you? No! Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh my gosh. And especially your example. Bad idea, dude. Bad idea. Bad idea. Don't do that. Charming your players to force them to do things they typically wouldn't do. And the example you give is a life cleric attacking a pregnant woman. Don't do that. If that's the example that comes to your mind, I would say that you should not charm your players and take control of them in any way whatsoever. You just need to totally stay away from that. I think that's going to be my final answer for you. You can use spells on your players that will sometimes take control of them and stuff. That's a thing in D&D. It is. But you never ever want to do it to do something like what you just suggested. So don't ever do that. That's a bad idea. That crosses a whole bunch of lines. You know, I don't care what your session 0 like safety consent conversation was. Like, you don't do that crap. What you suggested. So that's a hard no. That's a hard no. Don't do that. Chris G is like, wow, I would leave that group immediately. Yeah. That's cool. That's like one of those things, like if one of my players suggests doing something like that, I'm just like, whoa. We don't do that around here. You just take that idea and stuff it somewhere where the sun doesn't shine, and you forget about that, because that's not happening in my game table. Yeah, this no. Yeah, that's one of those things we're not gonna have in the game, my game at all. No, there are certain things you don't do. That's one of them. Now, are there evil people in the world that do that? I'm sure there are, and there have been, but we're not gonna roleplay that at my game table. All right, let's find some more questions. What is a good turn time at tier 4 play per player? 1 minute. It never changes. It never changes. Give them 1 minute and move on. And if they don't know what they're going to do, well, then you go to the next person's turn and their turn gets moved back. And then if they still don't know what they want to do, you go to the next person's turn and they get moved back. You just move them back in the initiative order. If they don't know, like 1 minute, like you don't know. You literally we just had 15 to 20 minutes of a round between your turns, and you still don't know what you're gonna do? No. You got 1 minute and we're moving on. You gotta keep that stuff snappy. I know there's some people gonna be like, oh, you can't do that, that's mean. Then don't play in my games. You know, I don't want combat to take 5 hours. It's at tier 4. Yeah, I get it. We have tons of abilities. Yeah, I get it. We have tons of spells. Yeah, I know. You know, and the combat, and I understand, and the monsters are gonna kill it. I get it. I do. Then you know what you can do? Study your character before the game. Study your spells. Learn your spells. Whoa! A 5th edition player that like studies their character, knows what their character's abilities can do, and know what their spells can do. That's pure gold right there.
but that's what you can do, and that's what you can encourage your players to do. Like, why is it that I, as a game master, have to spend hours prior to a game session planning an adventure, preparing these things, reading my monster stat block? You don't think that I read my monster stat blocks so that I understand what my monsters can do and how to roleplay them and how to play them in combat as well? Like, don't you think that I prepare to run every single monster before the game starts? You better believe I do. I look at the stat blocks. I consider what they can do. I look up spells so that I know which spells I want to use and how they work. You know, I think of tactics. I think of how I'm going to craft and create that encounter. I think of how I'm going to run it. Like, I'm doing tons of prep work before a game. Why is the game master the only one required to prepare before a game? Why is it that some players, not all, obviously not all, but some players do like zero prep? They walk in, they don't know what their abilities are, they don't know what their spells are, and then the entire game bogs down because they don't know what they want to do on their turn, and everybody has to wait for them. That's not fair. It's not fair for the other players. It's not fair for the game master. It's like the person who arrives late to a meeting and the whole meeting waits for them because they're late. No, start your meeting. This is not fair. Learn what your abilities do, learn what your spells do, and make up your mind. A lot of times, the delay is because they don't know what the things do, you know, and they're looking it up and trying to figure it out. Well, prepare yourself. Be prepared as a player. Be a good player. Don't walk in there with your complex level 18 wizard and not know what their spells do. That's crazy. If you can't learn what the spells do, then don't play the freaking wizard, man. Like, this is not brain surgery. So what I'm proposing to you is that players take the same amount of responsibility to come to the game session prepared to play their characters as the game master should when they are preparing the game to run at the game session. Like, everybody should share the responsibility of coming adequately prepared to the game session. Now, there will be exceptions, understood. Sometimes I, as a game master, don't have enough time and I come in and I half butt it. But most of the time, I'm doing my homework, baby, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure I run a good game, yo. So I like to expect the same of my players, you know. That was like a mini rant, I suppose. You just triggered right there. Do you have any thoughts on Castles and Crusades? I literally have the books on my shelf over there. I played it when I was at GaryCon in this last year, 2023. I played 3 Castles and Crusades games, I think, 2 or 3 of them. And then I also was playing it at Marmalade Dog as well. And literally, I got this shirt at Marmalade Dog this last year. And I was playing Castles and Crusades because I wanted to get a feel for the game system. And I liked it. I thought it was cool. I bought the books when I was at at GaryCon, but I haven't really read them or anything. I've been reading through Dungeon Crawl Classics right now recently, which I bought at Grand Con. So anyway, it seemed fine to me. I enjoyed it, but I haven't really read the rule books. So you really need to probably like read the rule books a little bit and play in some of the games under few different game masters, maybe, to get a feel for the game system, perhaps. So I don't feel like I've had enough experience with Castles and Crusades to really give you my opinion on it. I had fun playing it in most of the games. However, there was one game that we were playing Castles and Crusades in that absolutely sucked. But that wasn't because of the game system, it was because of the game master and a player. There was a problem player. Oh my gosh, I wanted to, everybody at the game table was pissed at this player. We all wanted to throttle this player. This was at GaryCon, man. I swear, dude, that game session sucked. That was one of those game sessions where you want to get up and walk away. Man, we had a bad player. This player, so let me tell you what this player was doing. The player was basically taking everybody's agency away from them and not letting them play the game. that is the high level summary of what that player was doing. And the game master did nothing about it. They let it proceed. So I blame the game master equally, because the game master, and by the way, this was a veteran game master. This dude had been game mastering for a while. You could tell it, not just because he was an older gentleman, but you know when somebody's been GMing for a while. And this guy just let it happen. He should know better, man. So I blame the game master, but this player, man. So like example. So I was in the game playing, and I don't remember all the details, but I was like, okay, my character is gonna go do this. Okay, I'm gonna go do this. And then the problem player was like, well, actually, you wouldn't do that, because this is a Nordic setting, and in those times, this, that, and the other were very important concepts in their culture, and your character being part of that culture would never consider doing something like that. Like, it's totally taboo, or you wouldn't do that, right? And then I was like, and then here's the thing: the game master was like this really big history like buff, right, about this setting and stuff. And so he would just be like, oh, that's true, that's true, he wouldn't, so basically every time you wanted to do something that wasn't like in line with the culture and the setting, the other player is like, well, actually, you wouldn't do that. Well, actually, no. Well, actually. And it was just like, I can't do anything. And then I was late to that game session. And so there was one other player there that was pissed. Like, when I got there, one of the other players, you could just look at his face, and he was like, he was angry. You could just tell he was angry. And here's the thing: when I'm a player, I'm a kind of a goofball, and I do kind of stupid stuff, and I often use a dumb voice and stuff. And I thought when I got there and started playing, I noticed after a little bit, not too long, that the other player was very upset. But I got there late, right? I thought the other player was upset at me because of the way I was role playing. They didn't like my shenanigans and stuff. So I'm like, this guy's pissed at me. Oh man, he's mad at me. And then this other player is doing these things, right? Totally taking away, well, let me play the game, basically. And then at one point, there was a good stretches where this one player was literally making all the decisions, and he was justifying it and saying, well, this is what we should do, and this is why we should do it, and this is why it's historically accurate, and this culture and stuff like that. And all the other players were just kind of like, oh, jeez, man. And so he was basically playing the game for everybody. Basically, nobody got to play the game for all intents and purposes, except unless you were in combat and you were like stabbing with your spear or something, and then he'd let you do that. So he basically wouldn't let us play the game. And then afterwards, I was talking with one of the players who was in that game, and it turns out that one player had been doing that from the very beginning, right? And that's why the other dude was mad, because he had like I was like an hour or so late, hour and a half maybe late, I can't remember. And so he'd been doing that since the beginning, and that's why the other player was mad. I thought he was mad at me. No, he was mad at the other player. So he'd been doing that the whole time, man. So like, that's what you don't want to do. Like, you don't want to override everybody else and just totally, what do they call it? Bogarting? Is bogarting the name? Bogarting. What does that mean? That is a term I think applies to it. Yes. Selfishly appropriating or keeping something. Yeah. That's what he was doing. He was bogarting the game session. He was the only one playing. He was taking it away from all the rest of us, So Humphrey bogarting. Yeah, so that was crazy. I don't know why I'm telling that story. Somebody asked a question or something led me to that. Oh, because it's Castles and Crusades. Yes. So all of the Castles and Crusades game sessions I played in were fun, except for that one. But that had nothing to do with the game system at all. There were other extenuating circumstances going on. So here you go. This game requires a college history class before you can play. Yeah. Man. We're gonna draw the giveaway in a little bit here, guys. We're gonna wrap things up here, so we're gonna get that giveaway going. There should be a link in the chat for you to join the giveaway. You can get a copy of Into the Fae, level 1 to 5 adventure module, or you can get store credit on the DM Lair store, where we still have the alt. We have a few alt covers a few alt covers of Lairs and Legends still there. So these things are heavy too. These are heavy books. It's like 700 pages of content in both of these books. This one right here has 29 adventures in it, over 100 new monsters, and the adventures span levels 1 to 15. So you got not quite to 20, but almost. And then this right here has traps, puzzles, standalone encounters, NPCs, villains, as a whole bunch of other resources you can use in your game as well. So the alt covers are available. These things are beautiful, and they're limited quantity. Those alt covers will never get printed again. They're leftovers that we have basically from our Kickstarter. And you could also get the digital ones as well. The digital ultimate bundle will have everything as PDFs, and it has map packs that come with tokens, and it comes with the image files of the maps that you need, that you can put in your VTT of choice, etc., etc., etc. So there's really cool resources there. So if you win the giveaway and you get the store credit, you could get that if you want. All right, looking for a question. What do you think of the Mad Mage campaign? So I ran like one of the levels out of the Mad Mage, and I liked it. I thought it was cool. And then I started to run a little bit of the next level, but then I forget what happened. I think that game took a hiatus, or we changed it or something. I can't remember exactly what. But the level I ran was super cool, and I've read some of a little bits and pieces of the other levels. There are lots of levels. It's a big module. It goes from level 5 to 20, if I recall correctly. And I like it a lot because people will look at the Mad Mage and they'll be like, well, that's just a dungeon crawl. Blah. No. It's more than a dungeon crawl, and you have different factions on the different levels of the dungeon that you can interact with, maybe make deals with. And there's lore, and there's things there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I think that from what I've seen of it, my little bit of playing it and the parts that I've read, it seems really cool to me. I think it's solid. Now, that said, it does suffer from a couple problems. The first problem is the plot hook. There's really not a reason to go into the dungeon. They kind of give you some reasons, but it's mostly just throwaway reasons. There's not a compelling reason in the module for a group to actually go into the dungeon. So you'd have to come up with that on your own. I came up with something. It wasn't hard. This is not hard work, right? You just come up with a reason to go into the dungeon. This is like a minor criticism. Like, out of everything that you could do wrong and the things you could screw up, this is probably pretty minor. Because as the game master, the chances are that even if you gave me a compelling reason on a plot hook, I'm probably going to change it anyway. So, you know. And then the other thing, what was it? There was that. And the other thing, if you look at the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, they don't have read aloud text. Like, most of the time in a game adventure, like when we publish our adventures for the DM Lair, we have read aloud text for every area. Some game masters want to read that aloud. Other game masters like to paraphrase it. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's there for you if you want to use it. Dungeon of the Mad Mage does not have read aloud text. Now, that does present some constraints on the game master. That tool isn't there for you to use if you want to use it. But I will say this. I'll say two things about read aloud text. One, read aloud text takes up space. And Dungeon of the Mad Mage is a big module. There are lots of levels. The levels are big, and the game takes you from level 5 to 20. That's a lot of game time. That's a lot of stuff in there. If you were to create read aloud text for every area in every one of those dungeon levels, and they're big dungeon levels, the size of that book is going to get really big. And not only the size of the book gets bigger, which makes it more expensive to print and ship and all that kind of stuff, but your creative team that's writing that module has to make all of that read aloud text. And I'm telling you, writing read aloud text takes time and effort. And so now they have to work more to create read aloud text for every area. And the book gets bigger. And so you're really expanding the effort of that project by doing read aloud text in every area. So it doesn't have it, which is a criticism, but as somebody who writes read aloud text, creates adventures, and does publishing, I can fully understand the reason in a module like that where you would not have read aloud text. I think there's a very clear justification for it, and so I give them a pass on it. Now, what they do, which mitigates that problem to a great degree, is that at the beginning of almost every area, what I noticed is they have a bullet point list of the different things you can find in that area. And that makes it pretty easy for me, at least as a game master, to on the fly look at that bullet point list and create my read aloud text and describe the area to my players. So because of that bullet list, I do not personally find it to be an impediment to play. I know some people would prefer to have read aloud text. So I have two quibbles with Dungeons of the Mad Mage, but overall I feel like what I've seen and played of it, it's pretty solid and I like it a lot.
If you make a 1 to 20 campaign from scratch, do you start at the final boss and work your way backwards, or start at low levels and parse out the game from there?
Yes to both of those, kind of. So you want to have an idea of who the final boss is. You need to know who your big bad is, and you need to know what they're doing in the game world. What evil stuff are they up to, and what are the problems that that's causing in the game world, and most importantly, how do those problems intersect with the adventuring party and get them involved, right? So you got to have an idea of who that is and what's going on, because that's going to impact, right, like all the different lieutenants and bad guys and stuff, and then, you know, the overall overarching campaign theme and story and plot lines and stuff, and then how do the players get involved, what are the bad things that they see, and then they're trying to stop it and stuff. You need to have an idea of that, but it can be a very loose idea. It can be something you write out on one page of paper. This is your campaign overview of what you're doing, right? But that's really all you need. You don't need to start developing like the level 20 adventure in all of its detail and glory. Like, don't do that. That's a waste of time, because you might never get to level 20. Your game might stop before then. In fact, statistically, your game will stop before then. So don't spend your time working on the level 20 adventure. Know who your big bad is and all that kind of stuff. But then what you do is you do start at the level 1 adventure, and you design the first adventure, and then your players go on that adventure. And then you design the second adventure, and your players go on that adventure. And then at some point you might start giving them options, right, of different things they could do, you know, to help combat the big bad and what the big bad is doing. And then you plan out the adventures as they're going to go on them. But at any given point in time, you probably have a rough idea of things that could happen in the campaign, adventures that you might make, but you don't flesh them out. Like right now for my Thieves Abound, I know who the big bad is, and I know what they're doing in the game world. This is my Pathfinder 2 game that I run. It's called Thieves Abound, is the campaign name. Like, I know who the big bad is. I know what they're doing in the game world. It's Durin the Corruptor. And I know he's trying to take over, essentially conquer the Marholds. I understand this. And he has a certain things that he's doing to do that. Got it. And I know that there are certain adventures they might go on, like Droamites are involved in a certain way. They might end up going to Droam at some point and taking care of business there. I know as well there's the realm below, where the Dalkir live and Durin the Corruptor lives, and so there's probably going to be some adventures down there, and I have a general idea of things that could happen, right? But I only plan out in detail the next thing, or maybe the next two things. That's it. And then I plan out in detail as needed, because I never know what's going to happen. Like who knows? We might, as a group, like just quit playing for whatever reason, or we might decide, you know, we'd like to do something different, or I might just switch things up as the game master. Like, this is something I do in a lot of my games. Like, I will have a major disruption happen in my game at some point, almost always. Like, the players will be doing a thing and they're like, this is the campaign and this is what we're doing. And then there's a major disruption. It's not like I scrap the campaign, but I introduce a big twist, a big disruption that changes the situation. And if that situation changes enough, my players might just decide, oh crap, you know, this changes everything and we're going to have to go do, who knows? So you never really know where things are going to take you. So you don't want to plan out everything in detail because you may never use it and it takes a lot of time, right? So just general idea, and then you plan out in detail the next thing, or maybe the next two things that they actually do. I think that is a much more, it's a much more realistic way to do your campaign planning and adventure planning. And it also, as well, it respects your time too, and it makes sure that you don't waste your time and that you dedicate your time to the parts that need dedicating, right? Okay, cool. We're gonna do the giveaway right now. So I'm gonna go draw the winner to the giveaway. Alrighty, drawing the winner. Drawing the winner now. All right, I gotta find this. Oh, that's not gonna do anything. I always think that's gonna do something and it never does. That doesn't do anything either. Show me the actions by the user. There we go. And okay, the winner is Dolphin Bros. Dolphin Bros, you are the winner. I will be sending you an email so you can get yourself hooked up with Into the Fae or DM Lair Store credit if you so choose. So congratulations, Dolphin Bros. I will email you and we'll get you hooked up. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're done for tonight. I went over by like 18 minutes, so I gave you some extra. You're welcome. My wife's gonna be like, Luke, you're supposed to stop at 8 o'clock. What happened? I'll be like, oh, I was talking and I didn't know what to do. They kept asking me questions. They wouldn't stop. All right, I'm leaving now. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Next week we have a cool show planned. I have a dude called Cade Wells, I believe. He is an educator, and he's going to be talking about using Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs as an educational tool to help people, like literally help people in like schools and stuff like that. So that's going to be a really cool conversation. Look forward to that next week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one, and be good and stuff. Bye.